Looks like we're going live now. Let's set up all of the links and everything. Looks like we're live on Twitch now. Again, every time it's a little bit awkward to get started because I don't do this very often. Okay. Yep, Twitch is online. Let me see. Get the chat. Okay, got the Twitch chat online. How about YouTube? Hello, everyone. Just trying to get everything up and running here with the YouTube chat. Yes, now we're live on YouTube. Let me just open that chat here too. Just bear with me for a second as I'm setting everything up. How did I do that last time? Live. Okay. They have this really weird UI when we go live on YouTube. But there's this hidden icon where it says live control place or something. And now I finally got it. Okay. So, pop out chat. Okay. Cool, cool. All right, I see some chat messages coming in. So that means we are getting some people watching. That's good. Okay, let me just grab the link and add that to school here. All right, everybody, getting ready to go here. See some people coming in. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Let me share the screen here. All right, now you guys should be able to see my screen. I can see your chats over here. We got Twitch on the right and YouTube on the left. Let's enable live chat. Got some top fans here. Hello, Noobs channel. Welcome to the stream. Ben Archer, welcome. Marcus, hello. Stefan, hey, good to see you. Voyager, hello. Good to meet you. Welcome, everybody. We are scheduled to go live at 4 p.m. It's now 4:02, so let's just wait a few seconds for people to come in. But yeah, this is what I was talking about. Like, to see the live stream, you have to click this button. It's like this view live control room. It's very counterintuitive, because when I just click the stream, all I see is this. This is just the configuration. So I was messing around with that. But now this is working. I see some metrics here. That's cool. Let's move that. Well, I don't need to see that, actually. Looks like we're live on all platforms now, so that's good. We're live on X. 34 people on X. Cool. What does that look like? Yeah, 35 views. Awesome. Okay. So now that we are live and done with all of the housekeeping, welcome everyone. Today I have a few things that I wanted to talk about. Basically going back from last week. And also, yeah, these were the questions that were asked last time that we didn't really get around to. So if you have any questions, around these topics over here, or anything left over from last week, or anything that you're struggling with in the Linux course, just feel free to drop them in the chat. The idea here is that we are going to be going back and forth, right? I'm doing this so that you get the chance to ask me some questions and that I can help you with the things that you're actually struggling with. And basically as a supplement to the course, and also to go a little bit deeper into the things that you need some more explanation on. I'm doing all of this to get you the best possible Linux education that I can give you. That is the whole point here, okay? I think we can both sit on YouTube and X to boost your numbers. Yeah, that would be really good. Thank you. I'm always grateful for some number boosting. There's actually one thing I have forgotten to set up, and I have to just quickly stop sharing my screen here, or hold on. Yeah, let me just stop sharing my screen for a second. There's just one more thing that I need to set up. Here we go. Cool. Okay. Share screen again. Okay, we're in action. Let's see. After this course, is it enough foundation to join your DevOps course? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The thing is, the course that you see here on school, the free Linux course, this is actually part of the DevOps course, right? It's exactly the same. This is a very small section. So this course is 8 hours long that you get for free, but still, this is just a fraction of even the Linux material that the DevOps course has. Okay, so the DevOps course in total is about 75 hours of video material, of which a little over 20 hours is on Linux. So this is a fraction of the actual paid DevOps course. So you get the same material, the same teachings, just a percentage of it. So this is what my paid students actually learn as well. So it's the same material in that sense. And as such, it is also ready or enough to join the DevOps course. In fact, you could join that right now. This is not necessarily a prerequisite to join KubeCraft, but Linux is the foundation of everything DevOps. Like any good DevOps teacher and every good DevOps education program is going to start with Linux and spend a lot of time on Linux. And that is where I think many boot camps and some of my competitors, you could say, where they go wrong, they kind of treat Linux as one of the check boxes that you should check off. Whereas I think Linux is actually the most important topic to master in any tech career, really. And we talked at length about that last week. So if you want to revisit that, you can watch the recordings here in the school community. And if you haven't joined that yet, if you're watching this, I'm just going to share the link here. It's completely free. This is free to join for everyone. You can go here. And cool. So now that everyone's here and the people are slowly coming in, we can start with this week's topics. We have 86 people tuned in now, as you can see here. So that's really cool. Welcome, everybody. And these were the questions that we were left with last week. So Linux and the command line, let's call it that. Actually, let's just go and open that. What is Linux? Let's just open that in my preferred text editor, which is NeoVim. All right, so I feel a little bit more comfortable here. Cool. So last week we talked about why you should learn Linux, right? And someone asked, what is a Linux distribution? And we were also talking about Debian. And someone asked a really good question, which is, what are all the parts of the distribution that Debian adds on top of the Linux kernel? Okay, so that is basically the question that was asked. And I figured we could go a little bit deeper into that. And I also want to go more into why is it important to use the command line, especially if you're doing this for if you want to land a career, a DevOps job, and make good money doing that. Like, why is it that I put so much emphasis on working on the command line? And we'll see how far we get. Also, let me see. Pomo. Okay. I'm going to start a Pomodoro timer. Initially, we're going to go for 50 minutes. I want to be a little bit more strict on the duration of these streams. Last week, we went for 2 hours, which actually was a little bit too long for me. I slept really bad because it's a little bit late and because of the light. So I'm trying to cap this one at about 1.5 hours. And that's why we have the Pomo timer in the top right screen here. You will see that. We'll do 50 minutes, maybe take a short break, and then we'll see how far we have come and how much longer we'll go. And again, if any of these questions already give some questions or you want to go deeper on some things, please let me know in the chat. Okay. So first of all, what is Linux? What is a Linux distribution? And I wanted to take you a little bit deeper into how I would approach this question. Okay. So a lot of this stuff I am answering from memory and from my experience, but I was not born with all of this Linux knowledge, right? I acquired this through my years in the field and through my years of experience and by mentorship, but also by learning how to find information and how to research things. And in order to do that, it is important that you learn how to identify the correct sources and where to look for information. And I'll start by saying that if you are always defaulting to AI and ChatGPT, um, I think you're not going to make it. I think you're not going to be a well-rounded engineer if all your only source of information is ChatGPT. If that is your default way to go now. And I did a whole video on this recently. I You can actually, let me check youtube.com. If you go to my channel and let me see, it's one of the latest videos I released. Here, please avoid AI. Watch that one if you want the whole explanation of that. But I realized that in that video, I explained that you should not use AI. And here in the course, I'm also explaining you what you should do instead. But also, I'm going to show you a little bit of my research process, okay? Now, in the course, you're going to be learning about help and man, those commands. So that is actually the first place where you should look if I'm looking for information about a certain command. You should always go to man, the man pages for everything. So man which. If I want to know about the which command, then instead of going to the internet or ChatGPT, this should be your first place to search. And we're going to do a whole stream about finding help as well. And then there's the help command for shell built-ins. You can learn more about this in the course. But also, one of the best resources that I found is the Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook. And I have that in a paper copy, and any self-respecting engineer, any self-respecting Linux engineer needs to have this book, okay? If you are taking a course from someone, and if you have a mentor who claims to know Linux, and he does not own this book, then that's an indicator that he might be full of shit, okay? This is the best Linux book on the planet. And it is comprehensive, okay? This is my go-to when I need to look up information. So I own this book, and I'm having a digital version here so I can share a little bit on the screen here. But if you want to learn Linux properly, get this book, 100%. This is very important that you do that because it's the best resource on Linux. What I also show to my students is the Linux command line, just so we have that covered. There's also the Linux command line book. This is a free book. It's also an online version here. Let me see. This is linuxcommand.org. And here you can download the for free in PDF format. Download it here. So there's a complete link to it. This is a really good beginner resource. This is a good place to start. But now when, for example, we have these questions of what is a Linux distribution and what are all the parts of a distribution that Debian adds on top of the Linux kernel, then the first place where I would go is the Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook, okay? That's the first place where I would go. So that is also what you're going to be, you'll see me referring this during the streams a lot from here on out, because I don't know everything. I am just a normal dude who has learned this as he went along. I am not a walking encyclopedia. Neither do I have any ambition to be a know-it-all and to know everything. Rather, I would much rather be someone who can find the information when needed, also without AI and ChatGPT. Okay, so I've made a few statements there. So let's just take a look at the chat if something is not resonating here. Someone's saying agree. I'm not sure what you're agreeing to, but let me see. Yeah. How does the shell distinguish between built-in commands, executables, and functions? And when does this cause problems? That's a really nice question. That's a good one. So let's see. Can I copy that? When I see good questions, I may not answer them in this stream right away, but I am going to note them down so that we get them next time. Okay, that is the whole idea with these streams. So when I see a good question like this, I will note it down, and when I don't get it to it this week, then we'll get to it next week. Okay. What about poor people who don't own that book? Okay, well, if you cannot even afford a book, then yeah, this may sound very harsh, but if you cannot afford that book, then then something's wrong in your life, okay? If you're not in a position where you can actually buy books, that means like this book, what is it, $20 or something, $50? Like you have to understand that you need to invest in yourself in order to get ahead in life, okay? And if you're not able to afford this book, then I'm not going to give money advice here. That's not my place. But if you stop buying coffee for a week, you can afford this book, okay? So don't use, oh, I'm poor, I cannot afford the book as an excuse. If that is really your way if that's really how you're going to approach a career change, then you have bigger problems to solve, okay? You need to be willing to invest in yourself by buying books and knowledge in order to get ahead in life. That is one of the biggest lessons I've learned myself too. So I'm paying these people because they've made the mistakes for me and they gathered it in this book so I don't have to make these same mistakes myself. And that is worth a lot of money, okay? So don't say I'm too poor to buy a book. Don't say, and if that's really the case, then you need to review your priorities in life. What's the name of the book? Yes, Nekratal, thank you. That is the right one. And it's also the 5th edition. Exactly. That's the right one. Okay, so then what is Linux then? Okay, so Linux is an operating system. Okay, that is the shortest answer to this question. Linux is an operating system created by Linus Torvalds in the 90s. We talked about this last week, but that is what Linux is, okay? It's an operating system. So an operating system is the software that a computer needs to run. That's basically the simplest way to do it. So if we do Wikipedia operating system, and Wikipedia generally is actually a pretty good source for technical information. I would say even better than ChatGPT. But an operating system is system software that manages computer hardware and software resources and provides common services for computer programs. Okay, so the operating system, well, this is actually a very good image for it. So you have your hardware. So let's pretend this is my computer. This is my phone, which is in a way a computer. But let's pretend that this is a computer. Now, in order so that I can connect a keyboard to this and start typing commands, like this is just a piece of electronics, right? With power current running through it that creates binary data. That is fundamentally what this is. So it's hardware, and there's a processor in there, there's memory in there, there are many other things in there, and there needs to be some sort of puppet master that actually manages this, which is a layer between the user, and the physical hardware. Okay, and that layer is the operating system. So the user runs an application on the operating system and hardware. And actually, that's what we're going to get into maybe in a second when we're going to talk about the kernel and why that is important too. So that is what Linux is. And as we saw last week when we went to GitHub and looked at the Linux source code, like this is Linux. You can like literally download Linux, the Linux kernel, and start and you can't actually run this, but this is Linux. It's basically a collection of code that is created to be to manipulate the hardware so that I, as a user, can use the hardware. And by extension, when I say the user, like other computers can also be a user of a computer, right? So if I have a server, then when my phone visits that server, those operating systems are technically interacting with each other. Okay, so this we need to understand this because now we're going to look into what a Linux distribution is. Let's see if there are any questions here. Yeah, if the guy can't buy a book, he can't afford a computer. Yeah, that's actually right. And like I'm not trying to I'm not trying to talk down on you or anything. Okay, I'm just giving you some honest advice here. Torvalds did just one package. He even used GCC to compile it. You have to say GNU/Linux, but I assume it's not in the fancy book. Yeah, okay, so you're just trolling. Fine. That's fine. For a DevOps career, which parts of the OS should one understand for an easier DevOps career? Which parts of the OS should one understand for an easier DevOps career? Well, open a drink here. Cheers, everyone. Which part? Well, like you don't have to become a Linux kernel maintainer in order to land a DevOps job. Okay, so you don't need to be able to go in here and read the code and actually understand what's going on. That is not the case here. To be a DevOps engineer, you need to have a functional competency in Linux. You need to be able to interact with Linux, but you don't necessarily need to like compile your own kernel and go many layers deeper than that. If you don't need to go much deeper than the Linux distribution level in most cases. Okay, so yes, the deepest you will probably go is to have to go into the C groups and namespaces, and because you're going to be working a lot with containers, and that is a decent level of understanding where I would say, yeah, that's more than enough to land a DevOps job. And depending on where you are and what you specialize in, that's when you're going to be either going deeper or just staying at that level. Okay. Cool. Cheers. Yeah, cheers, guys. Cheers and talk Linux. So next, we'll take a look at what a Linux distribution is. And for that, I will go to the my favorite resource that I wanted to share with you today, which is, of course, for those who have just tuned in, the Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook. You should buy this. I have no affiliation with them or anything like that. There's no Amazon links, but this is just the best place to do, okay? Let's see. Linux distribution. So there's a table of contents, and as you see, it is massive. Okay, this book contains basically everything you need to know. But here is the Linux distribution section. Okay, so let's read that. A Linux distribution comprises the Linux kernel, which is the core of the operating system, and packages that make up all the commands you can run on the system. Okay? All distributions share the same kernel lineage, but the format, type, and number of packages differ quite a bit. So this is fundamentally what I was saying last week, okay? A Linux distribution takes the Linux kernel and packages that make up all the commands you can run on a system, okay? So this is a Linux system, and I can run the clear command. I can run the ls command. I can run the echo hello YouTube, Twitch, and X command. Okay, these commands, they exist on this system because I am running a Linux distribution with a shell, and we'll go into CLI and etc. in a little bit. But the Linux kernel does not contain the echo command. If I'm not mistaken, if we do echo, echo these, there's a lot of echo in, but this is just C code. Okay. Let me see. Is there... No, echo is actually which echo? Which echo is a binary. It's the GNU/Linux binary. So man echo. Actually, yeah, here we go. This is how we find the information, guys. We read the man page, and actually echo we'll see is that we see in the man page that it is part of the GNU core utils. And to your point, what you were saying that we should be saying GNU/Linux, then you're right, because Linux, like all the commands that we're using here, it's like man echo and man ls, okay, it's all part of the GNU core utils. This was ls was actually written by Richard Stallman. If you know who Richard Stallman is, Richard Stallman actually wrote the ls command. I find that such a great fact, that the command that by far the most used command I use. But these are all part of the GNU core utils, okay? And GNU was the project created by Richard Stallman, which basically, like Linus reverse engineered the kernel, so the Unix operating system, and the GNU project went ahead and took all of these commands that were included with the Unix operating system and started reverse engineering those, right? So where Linus built the kernel, all of these commands and all of the actual things that you're using, those aren't part of the kernel. Those are all part of, in this case, the GNU core utils. And so the question then, what is a distribution, and what are all the parts of a distribution that Debian adds on top of the Linux kernel? Well, we know now that, for example, it's the GNU core utils is one of those parts that it adds on top of the kernel. And most Linux, I mean, dare I say all Linux distributions, I actually don't know if that is true, but just colloquially, I think we can say that all Linux distributions include at least some of the GNU core utils. That's how ingrained it is with Linux, because the Linux kernel on its own is practically useless. You can't do anything with it as a user, okay? So let's actually quote this. So let's see, from the Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook, 5th edition. And these notes are all going to be included in the school community. So in the classroom, there are the the deep dive workshops and all of the notes that I'm taking are going to be included here. So basically, over time, there's going to be a whole second course for people to consume and learn from as well. Okay, that's why I'm writing these notes and why I'm also including the source references and everything. Yeah, so the format, the type, and the number of packages differ quite a bit. So that is basically a delineator between several different distributions. Okay, so the Alpine distribution is only a few megabytes big. Okay, if you run Alpine Linux in a container, I think it's like 20 megabytes or so. So obviously that does not contain a lot of packages. But if you download Ubuntu, Ubuntu server, actually how big is that? Ubuntu server download. If you go and download Ubuntu server, does it say outright? 1.9 gigabytes. The LTS version is 3 gigabytes. Okay, that's a lot of packages that you get included with that. And this is also why you get a fully functional system. There's more functionality if you have more packages. But there's a big difference between 20 megabytes and 3 gigabytes. Okay, that is how distributions very often um, differ. So, what are all the parts of distribution that Debian adds on top of the Linux kernel? I can't really answer all of the parts, but for example, it's the GNU core utils, its configuration, right out of the box configuration, a package manager, Well, when you've done the installation module in the course, you have learned about package managers and what the different ones are. So those are a few of the elements. And yeah, that is basically what a Linux distribution is and why they differ. Let's see, are there any questions? Yeah, it's an amazing book, right? Got that book last year. Explain packages, fundamentally unpack it. That's useful for beginners. Yeah, we could do a deeper dive into packages. I've been thinking about talk about Snap AUR Flatpak as well as the concerns, so people are informed. Yeah, okay. That's definitely a topic for, let's see, future topics. Packages. Talk about Snap AUR Flatpak as well as the conference, so people are informed. That's a good idea. Thank you for that suggestion. In what ways does your paid course go deeper into Linux as compared to your free school? Oh yeah, I mean, um, the this what you see here is only 8 hours. The whole Linux curriculum plus fundamentals is over 20 hours. So we go deeper into containers, bash scripting. We're going to be building a Linux system completely from scratch. And you're going to be managing everything with System D. We haven't talked about System D yet, but you're going to be learning how to build and maintain a super minimal Linux distribution. And you'll actually understand all of the moving parts of that distribution. So we go into a lot more depth, but also it's all tailored to containers and building towards Kubernetes. Okay, we're working towards working with Kubernetes, and that is where the whole curriculum is tailored for. I need Windows to run CAD, so I force myself to never touch Windows Explorer. Git Bash Terminal to do everything. Can I say I have 1 year Linux experience if I do this? I mean, it's something for sure. I mean, you get a sense of the Linux command line. You get a sense of Yeah, it's not pure Linux, but it's a good compromise. Okay. Linux command are echo considered core utils. Well, you can find that out by reading the man page of the command. Okay, so when you run man echo in the bottom here on the bottom left, it says GNU core utils. Okay, so that is the copyright is also on the Free Software Foundation with the license GNU.org, and it says here it's part of the GNU core utils. So that's how you can find that out. A friend of mine told me about Linux from scratch project, learning step by step from the source code. Yeah, I haven't done Linux from scratch myself. I've heard it's very time consuming to sit there and wait for everything to compile. Um, so yeah, I've landed six-figure DevOps jobs and still do without having to do that process. However, if you want to go really, um, if you want to go really deep, then yeah, this would be a very good project to do. Are there any other books you think are great for IT career apart from Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook? Oh yes, for sure. Um, there are plenty of good books. Um, Probably the best one is going to be the Unicorn Project or the Phoenix Project. Phoenix Project. This is by far obligatory reading for anyone who is even remotely considering a career in DevOps or operations or any infrastructure kind of work. You need to read this book and its follow up, the Unicorn Project, and also the Google Site Reliability Engineering. This book, Site Reliability Engineering. Those three books plus the Linux administration books is like not even recommended reading, it's obligatory reading. Oh, and also the book Mastery by Fred Sanders, no, Robert Greene. Here we go. The book Mastery by Robert Greene. Anyone who does a career change or is in the beginning of their career, or if you're thinking about your career in general, read this book Mastery, and you can thank me later. What do you think of Pop OS for old laptops, which goes in combo? Yeah, Pop OS, like if it's your first rodeo with Linux, go for it. Just try it out. If you go deeper, then I would probably, I think Pop OS is a little bit bloated. I think it's better to do a server distribution if you're not using it as your main workstation. So it's very what do you call it? It's different if you're using the actual Linux workstation and doing your daily work on it. Then Pop OS can be a good idea. I would still go for Ubuntu desktop, for example, something simple. So for old laptops, I would say it's better to just use a server and don't have a GUI at all. Okay, you should do a binary plan, one extreme, something like an immutable distro. Yeah, that is all a lot way too advanced for, we're teaching to beginners here, okay? Big fan of your channel, inspired me to start learning DevOps more. That's nice to hear. I love working with hardware and infra. Very good to hear. I'm very happy to hear that I can inspire you that way. Thank you for saying that. Robert Greene is my favorite author. Yeah, he's a really good author. It's his books are amazing. Also, 48 Laws of Power is very good reading. Please show the book cover again. Mastery. It's Mastery by Robert Greene. Okay. done some questions. Let's move on to the next section. So what I wrote here, what can you do from the command line? Future topics here. What can you do from the command line? So yeah, the reason I wrote that down is related to why is it important to use the command line. So which question should I do first? Why or what? Well, if anything, if I don't get to it before the end of the stream, if you want a full walkthrough of what you can do from the command line, check out my recent workflow video that I released. Here. Let's see. This one. This is my entire NeoVim, Tmux, and AI workflow. I will share that in the chat. This is a very this is a in-depth video of what you can do on the command line. So that would basically be a good answer to that question. All of the stuff that I do from the command line. Just wanted to share that before I dive into why is it important to use the command line, because I may go a lot deeper than I plan here. So because this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I was writing about this morning. I do a lot of technical writing on X and on my blog, on my newsletter. And I was writing about this morning, going deeper into the reason why the Linux command line is so important to learn, okay? Because this course here, I call it the free Linux course, but it's basically a masterclass on how to use the Linux command line. And I don't call it that because it might be less attractive to beginners, but the I didn't want the title to be too intimidating, but secretly what I'm teaching you is to use the command line, okay, and how to do that properly, like someone who was properly taught Linux, like I was taught. And there are several reasons why that is so important. But in order to understand why it's important, I think we should go back to this little image here, where we talked about what is a command line even. Okay, let's go a little bit into that. So there's this diagram kernel user. Let's see if I can find that image. Oh, I don't like that one. Damn it, I can't find the right one. Here, this is a pretty... Yeah, this is a pretty good image. This is what I was looking for, okay? So to understand why the command line is important, we need to know a little bit more about the operating system and the kernel and all of the different layers, okay? So we've already talked about hardware and the kernel. So the kernel is what talks to the hardware. So like I said, when I want to run a program on my computer, there needs to be a layer or an interface between that hardware and that program. And actually, let's actually define the word interface. So, dictionary. The I like the Webster dictionary. So, interface. The place at which independent and often unrelated systems meet and act or on or communicate with each other. That is an interface. Okay. So um, first we're going to answer the question, what is the command line? So everything starts with the hardware. The kernel is the interface between the hardware and the programs that run on your computer. Let's just put that a little bit simply, okay? Now, the definition of an interface, according to Webster, is the place at which independent and often unrelated systems meet and act on or communicate with each other. So it's a place of communication. So between me and the machine is the kernel, which is the interface. Okay. Now, there is another layer here. And that layer is the shell. So I want to, yeah, here we go. It does have the shell. So we have the hardware, we have the kernel. The kernel is able to talk to the hardware. So when you boot your computer, the kernel loads, and it then loads all of the hardware and all of the modules that it needs to interact with that hardware, the drivers, etc. So the kernel is basically able to manipulate the hardware and schedule processes that need to run on your CPU, the central processing unit, for example. All that is handled by the kernel. Now, in order for me to talk to the kernel, I need another layer, and that layer is called the shell. So you may have heard about the shell, and these terms, the terms shell, command line, CLI, often get interchanged, and that is not correct. Okay. Actually, the terminal here as well. Command line, terminal, and CLI often get interchanged incorrectly. That is actually not a correct sentence. They get incorrectly interchanged. I'm not sure if that is actually correct, but we'll roll with it for now. So the shell, the terminal, the command line, all of those are not the same, okay? And I'm going deep here because that's what these streams are for. And it's important to me that you understand this. Before I go, let's say, yeah, I will check it out. 8 hours, my eyes are already bad. Yeah, like CubeCraft is 75 hours, okay? So there's plenty more if you want more. I should watch it in chunks? Yes, you should. Any YouTubers you recommend on learning and developing skills? Frankly, there aren't any really good YouTubers out there in this domain that actually teach this stuff, okay? I mean, Linux, there's Learn Linux TV. That guy is great. Jay Lacroix, he's great. For Linux, there's quite a fair bit. For DevOps, not so much. So yeah, Linux, what is it, Jay Lacroix? Yeah, Lacroix. Learn Linux TV. That's a great channel. one of my mentors, Rob Muehlstein, he used to do a lot of YouTube videos on Linux. He's actually the best teacher, but he doesn't teach anymore, unfortunately. So that's why I'm doing this, because I don't see many other good people teaching this. So that's why I'm providing this. I'm spending time on this for you guys. Why are there so many different shells? Bash, Z shell, and fish, and doesn't matter which one is learned first. Oh, I love this question, and that's actually very related to what we're talking about here. So we are going to. This is actually exactly what I was getting at right now. So thank you for that question. We're going to do that here. Are you in Fedora? Yes, I'm currently running Fedora. Interface is a contract. You make the connection with it. Yes. It ensures proper common rules and language between them. Yeah, that's a very good, it's actually a very good way of putting it. Thank you for that. What did you say? It ensures proper common rules and language between them. Yeah, I like that. I'm stealing that. It's the text-based interface. I like to emphasize on correctly differentiating the shell. Yeah, it's important. And you see, like there are these boot camps in my competitors, and when you look at their curriculum, like Linux is maybe like a 3-hour part of the whole thing, and that is so wrong. Okay, you're going to be spending so many hours of your life working with Linux, and especially if you're going to do it as your career. So it makes complete sense to me to actually understand the craft and the tools that you're working with. And that's why that's why I'm spending time here. And this is also the way I was taught, right? I also got mentors who taught on a very deep level. And yeah, this is this is the reason why I do it, because it's important to me that you learn Linux correctly. And this is how I teach everything. Okay, if you think this is deep, you should watch me teach Kubernetes in KubeCraft. Like, there's a reason why we're landing jobs every single week, and people love my teaching. Okay. Yeah. So I like how you emphasize. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay. Does the KubeCraft Career Accelerator cover all the Linux things? Yes. As I said, the first 8 hours in the free course, it is only the first, what is it, 8% of the whole curriculum. Can you explain a bit about Zettelkasten system and how you use it with Vim? No, that is not the scope of this stream. We're teaching Linux for beginners. Zettelkasten, maybe we'll do a little bit on note taking in the future. If you really want to learn that stuff, then KubeCraft has a lot of courses around this, and I'll teach you exactly how that works. Let's see. Hi from Kolkata, India. Hello. Okay, let's go. So we established that we have the kernel, we have the shell, and then we have the applications, okay? So in order for me as a user to issue commands to the hardware, I need to talk to the kernel. But the kernel does not provide a direct interface for me as a user to talk to. So that is why we need the shell. And the shell, as this question came to, why are there so many different shells? Bash, Z shell, fish, and does it matter which one is learned first? So as you see implicit in this question is the fact that there are many different shells. And why there are so many different shells is because this goes back to the origin of the Unix operating system, okay, and how this was built. So there are a shell is a program that runs on your computer. It's written by someone. It's actually something that was created. So the bash shell, bash is actually born again shell. and that one is based on the POSIX shell, if I'm not completely mistaken. So let's see if the man bash, the GNU Born Again shell, was created in 1989. At least that's when it was copyrighted. I think it is older than 89. I'm not sure actually. But it is just like anything else. It's just a command. Okay. But the man bash, this manual page, is one of the most important pieces of documentation you can read as a DevOps engineer or someone who wants to have a career in Linux. As you see, it has anything about arguments, login shells, interactive shells. Like this is a masterclass in Linux alone. Like you don't need to look much further than what you have readily available on your system to get a deep knowledge of Linux. Okay, the man bash, like every self-respecting engineer should read this from top to bottom at least once in their lifetime. Okay, so what I was looking at is bash, if it has anything about the history of bash. Okay, so Brian Fox is the author of bash. Uh, yeah, okay. So let's do a little bit of research on to answer this question. Why are there so many shells? Okay. So in order to understand that, we have to go to POSIX shell, and we saw that referenced here, portable operating system interface. Um, let's see, POSIX. POSIX, family of standards specified by the IEEE Computer Society for maintaining compatibility between operating systems. Okay. So in order to define a level of compatibility, POSIX specifies many aspects of functionality that can be classified as an API, command line shell, and shell commands. So originally derived from commonly found Unix APIs, shells, and commands, partly because Unix was considered manufacturer neutral, many systems conform to the standard, including branded Unix systems, Unix-like systems, etc. So um, this is actually interesting. Like, I would love to go deeper into this. I'm not sure how useful it is for people to know this. I'm not completely knowledgeable in all of the history because I was not alive during that time. Like the name standard, this emerged in 1984, so I wasn't even born then. So I'm definitely not an old dusty system administrator who actually knows all of this. But there is the POSIX shell. So that is when you run which sh, then this is the POSIX shell. Man sh. No, POSIX shell. Let's see. Yeah, so, sure. The POSIX shell. Check out my other tutorials. Click on the topic, POSIX shell. Let's take a look. Like, also when we're talking about like researching and finding good sources, like when you find a blog that looks like this is usually an indication that it's a very good source. Okay, so this was last modified July 25 actually. Okay, that's cool. But this seems like a very solid resource on POSIX and everything. So what is a shell? Anyway, it's simple. The Unix operating system is a complex collection of files and programs. Yeah. So here he talks about that the shell talks to the kernel. Yes. Okay. But does he talk about the history of the different shells? That's what we're trying to find here. Like, I understand the difference between bash and shell, but I would actually want to know why there are so many different shells. Maybe someone in the chat already shared it. Let's see. Honestly, I want to work with you already. Start to search for a new job. You have a very bright and focused mind. Thank you very much. I would look forward to welcoming you. Bro, what is the difference between a shell and a terminal? Yeah, we're getting to that. Is it possible that a fresher with no prior experience can get a DevOps job remotely from South Asian countries like India by completing your paid KubeCraft Accelerator course? It is possible, but getting a remote job from India, Pakistan is a very difficult thing to do. Okay, I'm completely honest here. Like that is very hard to pull off. No matter how good of a DevOps engineer you are, it is very difficult to land a DevOps job in, for example, the States, if you stay in India, etc. That, like from what I've seen from the people I talk to, that is very hard. Do you think BSD is worth learning? I would focus on Linux. Starting with fundamentals is it best to start with learning Vim? Okay, move right to NeoVim. Start with Vim. Very important. Like go to my Linux course. I explain exactly why in this course, but start with Vim. That's the short answer at the end. So we were looking at shell, bash, and the differences between those. Like the short answer is there are different shells. This came about because you had the POSIX standard, and then people wanted to do something different than the POSIX standard. That is where the bash shell came from. It's called the born again shell. And to answer the question, which is the one you should learn, that the answer to that question is actually bash. Okay. Now I see that my Pomodoro timer is now at -2 minutes, so we have gone past 50 minutes. I feel I'm in good shape. We're gonna go and continue for about 20 more minutes, and then we're gonna see where we're at. Pomo start D. I don't feel like I need a break. I would rather skip the break and just keep going and rather end a little bit earlier. So starting a Pomo timer for 20 minutes, and we're going to see how far we get into shells, okay? So the shell you should learn, like from all of these different shells, why are there so many different shells, and does it matter which one is learned first? The reason why there were different operating systems with different APIs, and people developed different shells to solve different problems. That is basically the best way I can put it. Further study history of Unix and POSIX. Actually, let's include these links here. And there are teachers who will tell you that you should first learn the POSIX shell, and which people who are a little bit more hardcore than I am, and frankly, those are the guys like Rob Muirstein who have been in the game for, what is it, 30, 40 years. So those guys will actually emphasize on POSIX shell. Speaking from my own experience, working in a more modern DevOps engineering environment, especially focusing around containers and Kubernetes, I personally have not found any lacks in my gaps in my understanding, because I never went really super deep into POSIX and what is POSIX compliant in bash scripting and what is not. I personally have not run into many issues because of that. So you will hear teachers, or like really deep teachers, say learn POSIX compliant bash scripting first. I have not run into problems in my career so far by skipping a deep dive into POSIX compliance. That is all. That is what I will say on that. What I will say is the shell you should learn is bash. Okay, bash. So when I run when I'm running this on a Linux machine. Like everything you see here is running on Linux. Does anyone know here how you can show the name of your current shell? Does anyone in the chat know? How do I figure out what my shell is? Can anyone tell me how to view my current shell? Does anyone know? Echo shell. Very good, Drew. That's it. That's it. What is POSIX compliance? Yeah, it's basically adhering to the POSIX standards. So when certain things you write in bash scripting are not POSIX compliant, and therefore it's not necessarily portable to any Unix operating system on the planet. So POSIX compliance is basically a way of ensuring that the script or the code that you write is going to run basically anywhere. Like I'm really oversimplifying it, but that is my understanding it. But you can do further study in it. Echo shell, yeah, that's it. Echo shell, echo shell. Here we go. So I am currently running Z shell, and well, that is actually I'm not giving a very good example. Okay, so Z shell is then. So we've talked about bash shell. So man Z shell. Z shell is actually, does it contain information about the author? No, interestingly, this does not contain information about the author. Like we saw when we did man bash. Bash, here you actually see that it was, you see the actual author of, well, actually, this might be the author of the man page, actually. Yeah. Let's see. Bash Wikipedia. Bash Unix shell. Yeah, Brian Fox. Yeah, okay, so that is correct. Okay. So it's not the author of the man page. We established that. It's actually the author of the command. So Brian Fox created Bash, and it's designed as a completely free software alternative for the Bourne shell, which is sh, the POSIX, or otherwise known as the POSIX shell. And they call it the Born Again shell, and that's why the name is Bash. So yeah, Bash is commonly used as the default login shell for numerous Linux distributions. And we can go farther, and that it's it is the default shell. Okay, so any Linux system that you log into these days is going to have the Bash shell on it, and almost anything of almost any Linux distribution is going to have Bash as the default shell. Okay, now I changed my shell to Z shell after I had used Bash for many years as my only shell, and the only reason why I changed to Z shell is because completion is better. So if I, let's see, do I have a command that would have good completion? If I go to home lab, no, this one doesn't have. Yeah. So if I run the flux command, for example, then this is going to show me a very nice menu that I can tab through, and I can read the help while I'm doing it. So flux this is a very nice way of tabbing through. This is the only reason why I use Z shell, basically, because it's so easy. Because when you do bash, if I just start a bash shell, because I can literally, if I do echo shell here, and I have user bin Z shell, if I now run bash and I do echo shell, it's not, it's showing Z shell. Oh, that's interesting. It didn't inherit it. Interesting. I'm still in the Z shell. So if I then bash flux, which flux does it know even run? Yeah. So the bash completion, if I do flux, it is actually not, it's just showing the directory. It's not actually completing the flux command because I don't have bash completion installed in this environment. But bash just spits out all of the options that you have, and you actually have to start typing, and then it will complete, okay? So if I do flux m, for example, then it will show all of these completions, and those are the options I get. If I do flux again, here I see a nice menu. That is the only reason why I changed to Z shell. But Z shell is not available on all Linux systems, okay? If I run a simple Ubuntu container, so podman it Ubuntu, podman run it Ubuntu, I'm now running a sub Linux system on my computer. And of course, if I now go echo shell, now we see that I'm actually running bash, okay? Bash is the standard default shell of Ubuntu. Now, what was I going to say? Z shell. Oh yeah, so if I witch Z shell is not even installed in this Ubuntu environment, in this container. So the thing is, Z shell does things very differently oftentimes than bash. So which man does this environment? Yes, this has man. So for example, do you know about the types? So if I exit this environment, and if I do type which is an alias, so then this is a binary. It's pointing to my type, which is actually an alias. But if I do type find is user bin find, okay? Find points to a binary. This is a program that's running on my system. But if I do type fg, then we see that fg is a shell built in, okay? And we're going to be looking into how to find information on the Linux system in a future one, but we could do very quickly. You've seen me use man, but type fg is a shell built in. Now, if I want to get information about a shell built in, I need to run the help command, okay? But help is not, there's no help in my path. I can't run the help command because Z shell does not find this command. So help, but which help? Yeah, so help, if I run help in this Ubuntu environment, suddenly I get all sorts of information about this here. So for example, echo, again, let's do which echo, is a binary here. But in bash, if I do type echo, echo is a shell built in, okay? So these are very different ways of managing how echo is running on your system. So echo is a shell built in, which means that help, man help, let's see, help, displays information about built-in commands. This displays brief summaries of built-in commands. So a built-in is, the word says it, it's built into the bash shell, okay? So when I run fg, the command fg or echo, it is not a binary that's running on my system. It is built into my shell. And those are two very different things. It's either it's something that you have installed on your system, or it's something that's built into your shell. So again, if I run help, you can see many commands here. Pwd, printf, local, logout, continue, echo, exec, exit, foreground for jobs, wait, while. What's another one? History. History is one that I use a lot. But also this one. Like, did you know type bracket? Bracket is a shell built in, okay? So if you're doing bash scripting and you do bracket, this is actually a shell built in. It's not, but the bracket is a keyword. So the bracket is a shell built in. So if I do which bracket, you will see that it's actually here, okay? So the point I'm making here is if you're running Z shell, you have a very different behavior from your system in these areas than bash. Likewise, any system that you are going to be using for work, any virtual machine, any machine that you're going to be working on will always have bash and will almost never have Z shell. And this is why I tell people to use bash for at least your first year. At least learn how to navigate in bash, how to work with bash, how to find your way in bash, and how to find bash information in the man bash page. This is how you become a Linux craftsman and someone who actually understands what he's doing, okay? Instead of just going with the masses and using Z shell because Apple decided to not install bash anymore on MacBooks and use that as their default shell, that does not mean that you should be using Z shell, okay? Do not use Z shell if you're a beginner, if you are a noob. Do not use Z shell because if you're going to come into an environment and you're expected to manage servers and you're going to ask, hey, can we please install Z shell because that's what I use, you're going to be laughed at, okay? People are going to laugh at you. And this is all taught to me by my mentors. And I was using Z shell and they taught me this and it hurt me. But now in hindsight, I can see this was the right call for them to teach me. I've had very good mentors. And that's why I'm where I am today and why I'm giving you these teachings. Like, I didn't come up with this. I was taught this way, and that I'm giving these teachings onward to you. So this might give a lot of questions. So let's see. Oh, there's a lot of chat coming up. Wow. Okay, Echo Shell. Yes, that's what we did. Misha is the best Misha is the best teacher for real. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. You can switch to shell. Yes. Amazing rising, minimal but cool. Yeah, thank you. I keep things minimal. C shell was originally written by Paul Falstad. Okay, so now we know. Okay. Linux would have been nothing without the GNU work by Stallman and others. Completely agree. Yep. Please stay away from fish. Completely agree with that as well. If you make a change, then try out Z shell after a year. But my recommendation is don't look into fish or new shell or anything like that. You will atrophy your skills, your Linux skills very quickly. Why not fish? Well, does Drew say anything? I guess because Oh My Z Show made it popular. What reason would there be to use another shell versus bash? Well, I showed you my only reason to use Z shell is because of the completion. Otherwise, I don't have any other reason to do it. Is Misha reading the YouTube comments? Yes, I am. If you mean the chat, I am reading that. Let's see. Looks like he is. He does in the pauses. Did you have to enable that completion menu selection? I don't get the options highlighted as nicely as you. Yeah, you may have to do some tweaking in your Z shell configuration. You need to do some comp dev and Z shell init and that kind of stuff. I got the Beatles song "Help" in my head. Yeah, help. I need somebody help. To learn fast with a good plan, I normally ask Claude or ChatGPT for a study plan. I strongly, strongly disagree, and I don't think you should be doing that. You're much better off finding a mentor. And yeah, I'm not anti-AI, but AI just uses what it can find on the public internet, right? It was trained, and that information is not always correct. Why did I get a notification now? I don't know. History is obsolete if you set up FCF with Control R. That's correct. I use FCF, but whenever I find myself on a virtual machine, I'm like, damn, I got so used to FCF. I lost my skills. So learning to use history, the history command, and grabbing through that is actually still very, very useful. Do you need to customize your bash or tmux, or can you just stick to the default? Yes, you can stick to the default as much as possible, and eventually you can start rising a little bit. Now we're talking Cred, the Stallman, and the others. Yes, exactly. Just go with the defaults. Yeah. So you can just install bash on your Mac to replace Z shell. Yes, you can install bash. I did it for years. You can remove, well, I'm not sure if you can actually remove C shell, but you can install bash. Using brew, you can install bash on your MacBook, and then you're using the normal bash default shell. It's a little tricky, but it's definitely possible. And I'm so happy to hear you ask these questions, because that is extremely important, guys. I did that for years, also on a MacBook, and that is what I recommend. So I'm happy you're thinking about this. Like, there's no bigger compliment to me than if I can inspire people to actually use Bash instead of Z Shell and start thinking a little bit deeper than what you would see in tech world with Nano or something like that. Okay, I'm glad I can actually stimulate some deeper thinking in you guys by doing these live streams. So this makes it very, very satisfying and useful to me. From now on, my absolute interview question will be: can you please install Z Shell for me so I can complete the interview? I really need it. Yeah. Yeah. Ask that on your interview, and yeah, you're not gonna be impressing any seniors then. Where we're just starting, just use the defaults for just about anything. Once you know what you're doing, tweak to your liking for your environment. It's very good advice, Gerard. Absolutely. Nano is also everywhere, maybe even more than VI on containers. Yes, okay. So VI Vim, that's definitely a yeah. Well, I'm glad I scoped the POMO, because we have now done shells. But we haven't talked about why is it important to use the command line. So that is actually a good topic for next week then. So the bottom line of why it's important to use the command line is, if you're working as a DevOps engineer, or anyone who is seriously working with any kind of infrastructure, if anything breaks, you will find yourself in a Linux shell. That is where you're going to be troubleshooting and doing your work. So in that situation, when production is down and you need to take action and solve problems, you'll be on the shell. And that is why it's extremely important, and why I'm going so deep into this and talking for 1.5 hours about this. So that is why it's important, but we're going to go even deeper there. And what can you do from the command line? And then we should go into VI and Vim. So here, VI and Vim. we're going to get into maybe next time, maybe we're doing a full stream on VI or Vim. Thoughts on the Dash shell? Never even heard of it, so probably irrelevant. Yeah, Nano is slow. Do not use slow Nano. Like the short answer is learn VI and Vim, and I teach that in the free Linux course. Okay, so you don't have to wait till next week. If you join the free Linux course by following this link, you actually have my complete course on Linux, on VI, and also explaining why it's important, etc. So you can get more information about that. It's all free. I think the learning of Z shell is not really a big deal for me. I vibe coded my shell in 10 minutes inside my Chemois. Z shell is nothing more than a config file. No. Go back to my explanation about, for example, how built-ins behave, and you will see it's very different than just a config file. Z shell is running on my Mac. Yes, exactly. When I enter Bash, I see to use Bash. Does it mean it's actually already installed? Yeah, the way you can find that out is type which Bash. So which Bash, that will show you the location of that binary if it's installed. Now, what you do have to consider is that if Mac ships with Bash, it is very likely a very old version of Bash. So if you do Bash version, it will print out the version, and I'm running Bash 5.3.0. If you're running something very old, then I recommend installing a higher version, a newer version, which you can do via brew. Okay. It's not default. Yes, exactly. Vim tutor is great. Yes, that's very good. I hope you got a bit of a laugh. It's a pleasure seeing you go through the whole topic, but everyone needs a bit of a joke from time to time. Yeah, exactly. We need to keep it. We need to keep it light as well. Okay. I tend to get very serious with this kind of stuff because it's so important to me. It's so I made so many mistakes. I lost so much time in the beginning of my career. That's why I'm spending my Sunday afternoon teaching you guys for free. Because it's important to me that you get the best possible learning journey of Linux, so you can learn from my mistakes and save months or even years of time. Yeah, I see Bash version 3.2 on your Mac. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So you're two major versions behind, and I strongly recommend using Brew to upgrade your Bash. All right, guys. Well, that is about it that I had in store for today. We've covered quite some depth here, but as always, I haven't gone. I didn't finish what I wanted to do, but 1.5 hours is about the limit that I can do right now. So, thank you for so much for all of the questions. That really makes this enjoyable for me to go a bit back and forth, and hearing people now saying I'm going to install Bash. Like, that is the biggest compliment. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, guys, join the free community. I'm hanging out there as well. Ask questions, interact with people. This is where you can learn the most. Like, I teach my course, but the whole community here is basically a full community of people all helping each other. So this is where you can come and ask questions, find other people learning the same stuff on the Linux journey. So it's all free. I'm doing this as a labor of love because it's so important to me that more people in the world learn Linux. So, guys, thank you for the kind words. It was very worthwhile. I appreciate it. Goal today, install Bash. Oh, that's the biggest compliment. Thank you. Thanks for the kind comments, everyone. All the best of luck this week. Check out the free Linux course and ask questions in the community. I'm glad you appreciated the deep dive. The recording will be there, including the notes. And next week, we'll dive into future topics. And that is going to be why you should use the command line and what all the things you can do. I'm going to show you some cool tricks. And we're going to probably go dive into VI and Vim next week. So have a good week, guys. Have a good evening. And I'll see you in the next one.